I adore video games that bring high quality downloadable content that expands upon the original experience on top of a game that I already love. Not a whole new game, not a standalone entry with all the bells and whistles that a sequel would suggest, just more of the same. Expansion packs are nothing new. It is never and has never been uncommon for creators to revisit their work and add additional content to improve upon the experience. Card games that are incredibly fun to start with but become increasingly stale with familiarity. Board games that can benefit from additional pieces or new maps. Or video games that add additional content. With the shift to digital delivery, anyone can access this extra content with just a few button presses. And there has been a sad shift towards creators no longer considering their initially published product as complete anymore. We've already come to accept that they are releasing unfinished products, that budget deadlines meant that this is not the final release, and they will continue to tinker with them over time. Day one consumers have no choice but to accidentally risk purchasing what you could unkindly describe as faulty goods. Rushed production schedules are nothing new, but before internet connections on gaming consoles became commonplace, faults in game code that shipped would become permanent features of that product, with little or no possibility for the developer to correct them at a later date. Companies approaching release dates must have been terrified. What if they missed something out? As a consequence, games would often ship with swathes of content cut out. Better just to excise something questionable than risk it contaminating your finished product. Better to have a smaller, high quality experience than something that risks a consumer revolt. Respected developers just could not afford for their games to crash regularly, to become known as problem people. But occasionally, if the game series was popular enough, and if consumer demand was there, you would get an expansion pack. In the video game world, these became popular with games like The Sims, that launched the first Living Large expansion pack in 2000, and then for adventure games, Half-Life, that launched the Blue Shift expansion in 2001. One of these is a content pack that requires the original game to replay, whilst the other is a whole new adventure that stands on its own. Perhaps we shouldn't be too surprised this concept was popularised on the PC rather than the console market. When consoles without large inbuilt memory cards tried it, it led to unfortunate issues like GTA London 1969, which required the user to insert the disc, remove it, then insert the original GTA disc, remove it, and then pop back in the London disc again to play. So plaudits then to Sonic team at Sega who, when they realised they would never hit the production deadline for Sonic 3, the third mainline entry in their popular series, they became extremely concerned about the amount of content they would have to cut. Sonic 3 is not a bad game. It has 6 large, expansive zones with 2 acts each, multiple special stages, 2 playable characters, the ability to save progress, something incredibly rare at the time, although we completely take it for granted now, and a multiplayer mode. However, the ambition of the production team would not be slighted, no matter how much McDonald's insisted on a release date to match the unveiling of their new Happy Meal promotion. And so, they got permission to do something amazing. Not only would they split the game in 2 and continue work on the unfinished content, releasing a standalone expansion pack, but they sat down with the hardware engineers and they began to figure out how 2 video game cartridges could be made to talk to each other. So, a full 6 years before the concept of expansion packs would become normalised, Sonic & Knuckles, one of the world's first ever video game content updates, dropped 8 months after, within the same calendar year as Sonic 3. It had new levels, a new playable character, and a far more streamlined experience that hinted at an actual plot building within this platformer. Furthermore, as increasingly public revelations about Michael Jackson's private life were raised, the number of songs with links to the singer in this expansion pack were dramatically reduced compared to the original Sonic 3. We may never know the true story behind the scenes drama that unfolded, but Sega's continued difficulty re-releasing one of their best regarded games from their history may be some indication of how problematic things eventually became. Buyers of Sonic & Knuckles received a brand new cartridge with a complete, worthy independent game within it, but one that also had a slot at the top, so any other cartridge could be mixed inside and combined. And thus, Sonic 3 and Knuckles, the complete experience, became one of the largest, most content complete and highly replayable 2D platformer video games on the market. 3 distinct playable characters, 24 levels, 4 types of special stages, multiple endings, and a full 2-person multiplayer, both on its own and within the campaign. There are arguments about what the ultimate 2D platformer was, but after 2 strong, critically and commercially successful entries, Sonic had made his mark. Unfortunately, the full experience does require 2 completely separate purchases, and that's a shame. Each individual half is excellent, but it's the full experience that would blow fans away. And at the same time, it can be plugged into Sonic 2 to make Knuckles a playable character there, adding not just a new character skin, but an additional moveset to a game 2 years old. Almost every Mega Drive game could be inserted, but they generated further Blue Sphere special stages, fun and interesting additional content, but minor compared to the true 2D experience. We will never find out whether the developers at EA or Microsoft Studios working on the Age of Empires or The Sims were aware of this when they came up with the expansion packs. A concept that became so normalised by the industry, it is now almost expected that large games come with potential extra content to be purchased at a later date. And unfortunately, history has shown Sega specifically took note of the wrong thing here. They realised that rushed production schedules did not automatically mean bad games. Both Sonic 3 and Sonic & Knuckles were successful on their own merits, despite the rush behind the scenes. While studios like Nintendo would delay games, seemingly indefinitely, to get them right, Sega continued to rush through production schedules, releasing games that contained so much promise, that were so close to being ready, but needed another few months of polish to meet the standards that the audience demanded. Mario creator Miyamoto is famous for quoting, "A delayed game is eventually good, a bad game is bad forever." And whilst this isn't true anymore, and he has qualified this, there must be some shame from any developer who publishes a game that they haven't been able to finish with the excuse that they can tidy it up later. We all have some regrets, but playing Sonic & Knuckles will never be one of them.